And thank you, Scott. You look so handsome up there. Well, so happy Easter, everyone. How are you today? You look fabulous. Fabulous. No crazy hats for Easter. I thought we might have some, but that's always fun. Before I start my talk, you know me, I always like some woo-woo stuff. There's a story that Sylvia Browne told, read it in a book about the crucifixion of Jesus. And I love this story because it's just so different. So apparently, Pontius Pilate was planning the crucifixion of Jesus, and his wife came up to him, and she was a follower, and she said, "Don't you dare kill that man. He's amazing. If you do, I'll never speak to you again." And so he said, "Okay." So he called Jesus in, and he said, "Look, I'm getting pressure from the public. I'm getting pressure from my wife not to do this. I've got to go through with this." And that's why they picked that Friday, and because on Friday they could only go out there till like sunset or till 3 o'clock, and then they had to leave. And so he said, "You're going to have to go through all of that, but we're not going to kill you." So he had to go through the scourging and everything, and they even got somebody to help him. And then when they got him up there, I don't know if you remember the part where Jesus was, begging for water, and the idea was that sponge. I learned in Catholic school that was vinegar that they put in his mouth. They put a sponge up there with vinegar, and here this man is up there. And apparently it was some kind of a drug to knock him out, to make him go unconscious. And now this is according to Sylvia Browne, who's the psychic, all right? And this isn't according to Dr. Laura. So anyway, Sylvia says that the sponge had some kind of drug in it, which made him go unconscious. And the guard that poked him to see if he was still alive, he was given strict instructions where to poke him and not to go in too far, just enough so that it would bleed and he wouldn't move because he was drugged. And then they took him down when the sun went down, or 3 o'clock, and they took him to the tomb where Mary Magdalene and his mother were there waiting. And I forget who all, but they were there waiting, where they cleaned him up and got him cleaned and medicated and so forth. And his uncle, which many people don't know, was very wealthy. He had a huge shipping thing. He would deliver things and back. And they cleaned Jesus up, and they got him on the ship and took him away. And they went to France, and that's where they lived happily ever after. And I love that story. I love that story because Jesus was a great teacher. And I like to know that he went on and had a full life with Mary Magdalene. And, now, okay, Mary was not what the Bible said. She was actually a goddess, a princess. She was very educated. And that is why Jesus liked to hang with her, because Jesus was very educated. All right? Now, this is not your typical Easter sermon, I know. But I'm not your typical minister, so let's go. All right. So the resurrection is the death of the belief that we are separated from God. God did not die. What happened was that man awoke to life. The awakening must be on the part of man, since God already is life. And that is by Ernest Holmes. And I love that. So resurrection, each day we have a chance to resurrect from our stinking thinking, the way we look at life, the way we interact with people. That's a resurrection every day. And we are that God. We are that power. We are that love. And so we need to remember that. We need to remember that when we're being crucified by somebody or something in our life, that no, that is not, you may think that about me, that is not who I am at all. And Jesus taught that the great reality of life is love. But the way this reality works is through the law, and every man must reap as he sows. So remember, the law is, what are you putting into the universe? What are you thinking? What are you speaking? How are you interrelating with each other? And love is what Jesus was all about. Jesus was Ernest Holmes really loved, he went through all the faiths, but he really had a lot of talking about Jesus in the science of mind. And I really believe that is what we are about. And I believe that's the thread, and that's the thread through all the faiths, is love and oneness. It's not me, I'm the right one, you're the wrong one for what you believe. We are all one. We are all part of this universe, and each one of us is here for a divine purpose, a divine reason. And so step into that power. Step into that knowing. That's what Jesus, here, he knew what he was facing. He knew what he was going to be going through. And he went and he prayed and he accepted it. Sometimes we have to know that whatever challenge comes up in our life, there is also a divine reason for it. So I love this. This is how we rise up. A person's most useful asset is not a head full of knowledge, but a heart full of love, an ear ready to listen, and a hand willing to help others. That's what we're here for. That's what we are here to live. That is who we are. That is what this center is all about. That is what we teach. And today you get a trifecta. You get all three of our ministers. So now I'm going to turn it over to our everything man, our jack of all trades, our
Hello,
wonderful
everyone.
Reverend William.
Thank you so much,
I'll
Dr.
pass
Laura.
the wand off to you.
Thank you. To go from one aspect of Jesus to another aspect of Jesus.
Oh, Jesus.
Unbeknownst to me, I did not know I was going to be doing sound today.
Yay.
I thought I just had to worry about my talk, but oh well, here we go. So buckle up, Buttercup, here we go. Dr. Laura talked about Ernest Holmes, and yes, he is the founder of this philosophy, but he's not the only source of information. She was talking about Jesus, or a very loose rendition of what the world kind of knows about it. Right or wrong, left or right, it doesn't make any difference. But the idea is to tell us stories that you could resonate with and open up and see yourself in that predicament or that situation. And what would you do to rise up out of that situation? So here's my first slide right here. Since man first began to meditate deeply and earnestly upon the spiritual meaning of life, there has always been a teaching that this physical plane is but a dense manifestation of a more subtle and ethereal plane. That this physical body is but a counterpart of the immaterial body. That's a great first part of a quote that I'm going to be talking about today. You are the full aspect of spirit. Not just a rendition, but the full aspect of this divine presence that you may call God, Allah, whatever. It doesn't care. It's acting by means of you. And when you can recognize that within your own life, it may give you a different context about how you see others, or how you deal with a situation, whether it being going to the grocery store or doing sound in the back of a church. It makes no difference. It's how you handle the situation and whether you can rise above that, deal with the situation as best that you know how, regardless of the outcome, that you know that you did your best. That's the trick. You know that you did your best. How often have you really reached that pinnacle? Only you can answer that in your own life, and only I can answer that. Because there's been times I've done stuff that have been less than 30% of my potential, and I knew it. But I got 30% of what I expected. How often have you expected 100% out of something, but you gave less than 10%? That's what we teach here, is that you get as you receive, as you give. As you give out, or better yet, as you give to yourself. Because ultimately, everything that you do is for yourself. I mean, let's face it, we are very selfish here. Because when I give to someone, I love the way that it makes me feel. How about you? I mean, it really is a selfishness. But when you can understand and realize that, it just makes even the hardest days wonderful. That you can look back at the end of it and go, wow, what a ride. Don't know if I want to do it again, but what a ride. Today, even the scientific world is penetrating the mystery of the mind and soul, and at least theoretically, if I could say that word correctly, has resolved the material world into lines of force and energy. Has anybody here heard the word quantum physics? Thank you for the laugh. But that's exactly what we're talking about here. The idea that you are the physical embodiment of that essence that we call spirit, God, the universe, has been the truth since day one. It's only as we have evolved our consciousness and our understanding of life that we have now started to begin to accept that idea that right here inside of me is spirit. Now what am I going to do with it? That's the thing, is having the knowledge and doing nothing with it, let's face it, what a waste. But that doesn't mean that you have to, every one of us has to be a millionaire or like Virgin sending rockets and flying all this sort of stuff. Just being the best person you can be of what excites and thrills you, whether it's planting roses in a garden. It doesn't matter. The fact is that energy, that power, that love, that passion, that is what spirit is wanting to experience by means of you. Because let's face it, spirit is everywhere, everything, all the time, all at once. But it's ethereal. It's not physical. The only way that it can experience itself is by means of you and I. So like Dr. Joe says, let's show God a good time. This physical body, which nature has provided for our use on this plane, is real enough, or we would not have it. But it is not eternal. I like that. Spirit has said that the design, or if people like automobiles, this model is the right model. It likes it. It likes to be the driver in this model, your body. Because if you weren't enough for spirit, you wouldn't be you. You would be something else. So you are enough for spirit to move and be and breathe and love. You are enough. But you can always be more of yourself. The only limitation that you have is your own belief in yourself. And that's what I want to talk to you and put into you to this day. Rise up. Be the best person you can be, regardless of what it is that you like to do, or better yet, even if you're 80 years old and there was this passion that you had when you were 15, 20, or 30, or 40, or 50, or 60, or 70. If there's a passion still in you, do it. Why are you waiting? What are you waiting for? Get out there and express yourself freely and openly. And just watch what happens around you. Watch the excitement that you cause in others that may be dim or not as bright as far as expressing themselves. You can be that spark of excitement for everyone around you. It has to start here first. Loving yourself. Being true to yourself. And only you can answer that. I can't. I can only give you words of wisdom and encouragement and say, go get them. Be your life coach. That's what all of us are here for. Even the musicians, to give you that divine music that inspires that essence within you. That's what this is all about today. That's what this Rise Up is all about. It is some part of the flux and flow of the activity of life upon itself. And you notice that I've got a different color there. Spirit acting as itself by means of you and me. Right there in black and yellow. Proving it to yourself every single day. Just knowing it. Even if you can't really prove it physically, just know in your heart. And you know right now, in your heart, you can hear, and it's resonating with you. I can tell, and I know, because the truth is the truth. Now, whether a philosophy has been taught thousands of years ago, or whether it's new thought, or like Dr. Dale.
Not yet.
I'm projecting into the future. Reverend Dale does on the first weekend, you know how we go through the religions. But did you all notice that the last part of the religion is the religions yet to come? There are philosophies that are yet to come because everything is built upon the previous version. Just look at bell bottoms. They've come back, and believe me, I love wearing them. But 1 + 1 is always equaled 1. But you know you had to learn 1 + 1 before you learned how to do quantum physics. That is the analogy of all religion. So don't limit yourself and say that this is the only religion. It's all the same thing. It's all a desire to live, learn, and be the expression of spirit. How can I get closer to myself? If I can get closer to myself and love myself more, loving everybody else is easy because it's already within me. And that's what we're here to do, to teach you, to love yourself, to give of yourself, and by doing that, you automatically are giving to others because it's osmosis. It is love in action, ripples in water. Ernest Holmes, Science of Mind magazine, The Best Is Yet to Be, April 1950. That is an excerpt. What I just read out to you today and what I just spoke about today is an excerpt from Ernest Holmes back then. And it is still relative and poignant. So rise up. Rise that love within yourself up. Rise it and use it and be it. Because you are nothing less than spirit in action.
No, I'm going to have Ryan. That was great. I love I love following those two because they always set everything up perfectly, and they inspire me to do a good job up here. So for those of you that don't know me, I was raised in the Jewish tradition, and so I'm going to talk about Passover since we're still in the middle of it. And I want to start by telling you a story of Passover when I was just a young girl. You can put it back on the other slide because I'm not ready for Moses yet. I'm not there yet. So there's a tradition in the Seder, and the Seder is the service that we do in our homes the first and second night of Passover. And there's a tradition. In the middle of the table, we've got a Seder plate, which has all the symbols of Passover, and we also have this matzah cover, and there's 3 levels of the matzah cover, 3 different divisions. And the middle matzah is broken in half, and we put one half back in the matzah cover, and somebody hides the second half of it somewhere, and the children find it later, and they get a prize. Well, I was the youngest in our family. I had a cousin and my sister. They were both older than me, and they always found, we called it the afikomen. They always found the afikomen, and I was getting really tired of it because I wanted that $5 that you got. And so one year, I was starting to, I was getting a little bigger and a little braver, and I thought, I'm going to outsmart those two, because our uncle always hid the afikomen in my grandma's bedroom. So they knew immediately. We always knew to go to the bedroom after we're done eating, you will find the afikomen there. So one year, I decided I'm going to play a trick on them. So what I did is I went to the restroom a little bit before the Seder was over, and I found that afikomen in my grandma's bedroom. It was underneath the mattress where he always hides it. He's very uncreative in that area of hide and go seek. So I took the afikomen, and I put it in the bathroom in a place where no one would look, where I would know to go and get it. So the dinner ends, and I ran to the bathroom, and my sister and my cousin were kind of looking weird at me because they knew we all run to my grandma's bedroom because that's where the afikomen is. And they were wondering why I was going somewhere else. And so I ran, I got that afikomen, and I said, here it is, I'm ready for my $5. And my sister and my cousin just looked at me with dagger eyes because they're like, how could that little you-know-what outsmart us? And I just was proud of myself because I finally got that $5, and it was a great, great coup for me. But as I stand here today and I look back on my behavior and my consciousness at that time, I realize, looking back, there was just such a sacredness at that table that I was just really not present with. All I could think about was my ego and wanting to beat those 2 girls and getting that afikomen. That's where my head was at. But here was my grandma, who was the salt of the earth and who just worked so hard to make our Passover Seder absolute perfection. And here was my family, who's no longer here, and this beautiful ritual that we do at the Seder, which is all about from bondage to freedom. I just missed all of that. And so I'll take my next slide. So for me, my journey from where I was then to where I am today is an example of the Passover story. And I'm going to give you a little bit about that story right now for those of you who don't know what it is. So in biblical times, the Jewish people were enslaved by the Egyptians. And this guy Moses came along and said to the Pharaoh, who was like the king of the country, basically, Moses said, let my people go. And the Pharaoh said, absolutely not. These people, we need these people, and no. And so that unleashed the wrath of God in the form of 10 plagues, which are absolutely grisly. We've got frogs and gnats and pestilence and just so much unsavoriness. But it wasn't until the final plague that Pharaoh relinquished and said, okay, the Jews can go. And that was the slaying of the firstborn of the Egyptians. And the word Passover comes from that last plague because the Jews were instructed to put lamb's blood on their doorways so that the angel of death would pass over their homes and not kill the firstborn. And I know it sounds horrible, but these biblical stories are really extreme for a reason. They're meant to grab our attention and wake us up, even subconsciously. They're getting in there so we have an opportunity to reflect on ourselves. And that's really what Passover is all about. It's about a spiritual journey of consciousness expansion. Because within us, we're in bondage by a lot of things. We're in bondage by thoughts and beliefs that limit us, like Reverend William talked about. Old thoughts that say we're not enough, or we can't do that, or that kind of stuff that just holds us back from being and living this life of who we are and what we really want to do. That's bondage. And we have that every day of our life. And the story of Passover is waking us up to say that you too can be free. And really, Egypt is all about this material bondage that we get into, that we're in bondage to what we think society knows for us is right. We're in bondage to that. We betray the heart because we think what's going on out here in our world is what we are supposed to do. And what our teaching has taught us, back to the transcendentalists, they said, within everybody, no one is outside of this. Every single person has within themselves this richness of life, this creativity that expresses uniquely through all of us. And we turn away from it because we need to conform to society. And we're here to tell you to stop being enslaved by that and free yourself and live in the creative potential and energy that you are. That's really, to me, what Passover is all about. Consciousness expansion, so that you let go of the chains that bind you to living a life you do not want to live and free yourself to live your greatest reality. My next slide is this. This is a quote from Rumi. Anything you do every day can open into the deepest spiritual place, which is freedom. And I love holidays like all of us. I love the ritual of it. But it's also not just about the food and the eggs and the family gatherings. It's great. I mean, that's all great. But it's also waking us up. It's a reset, because we forget in our everyday lives about what we can do every day, not just on holidays. And Rumi speaks to this. And he speaks to this place inside of ourselves, this spiritual place within us, that we can tap into any day, doing anything. It doesn't have to be a holiday. It doesn't even have to be at a service. Any moment you can drop in and feel that spiritual place, because spirituality is freedom. I mean, you all are here today. Many of you come here every single Sunday. I mean, why do you do that? Why do you choose to come here on a Sunday at 10 a.m. rather than sitting at home reclining in your bed or sleeping? Why do you come here? Because there's something inside of you that gets fed, that needs to get fed with spiritual truth, with knowing who you are beyond this physical body, to see yourself as this extraordinary expression of God that you all are, that we all are. Because this Egypt place denies us that energy of spirit. It's all about what's here. It's all about the rational mind. It's all about figuring things out on this plane of existence. And the story of Passover wakes us up to see there is a greater power called God, called Spirit. And when we tune into that power and open up to the creative flow, to the wisdom, when we open up to it, life changes for the better, because we're tapping into something so much bigger and so much more powerful. My next slide is this. Your duty is to be, not to be this or that. It's about time that we stop bringing ourselves into such a boxed-in space of thinking and identifying with what we need to be or do. That we're so much bigger than that. And I love this quote because that's our duty. It's just to be. Just to be and to feel. What does to be mean? Like Reverend William was talking about, it's an ethereal thing. It's not a thing you're going to be told out here in the world. It's something you know in your heart. Be that. Be that. It doesn't need to be something that you define. It needs to be something that you feel and can just live into and expand. And my next slide is this. So this series of quotes, this must be our thing today, Reverend William. My series of quotes are by Paramahansa Yogananda, who is one of my favorite spiritual teachers. And he says this: the material and the spiritual are but two parts of one universe and one truth. And I wanted to talk about this today because a lot of us think I have to be all spiritual or else I'm all material. And that's just so not true. We do not live in a black and white world, and we are not black and white on the inside. There's so many aspects to ourselves. And I believe these two holidays are waking us up to balance ourselves out. because we get very entrenched in the world of doing, the world of circumstances and life events and politics and this and that. And we get out of balance because we forget who we really are as these spiritual beings. We forget that spirituality is just as powerful, it's more powerful than this material realm. And so Paramahansa Yogananda is telling us there are two parts of one universe. Not this, not that, one thing, and we are all of it. And my next slide is going forward on this. By overstressing one part or the other, man fails to achieve the balance necessary for harmonious development. So my story that I told you at the beginning of my talk was my development. I started out in this really egocentric place of competitiveness, of wanting to show other people. That's where I was at that time. I don't judge myself now, but that's where I was. And I was out of balance because I was so needing to be proving myself. But as I evolved and became into balance by tuning into my spirituality, what a balancing energy that is. With all this earth stuff, that spirituality is a big balancing energy. And that's why I love our center so much, because we teach you how to bring that spirituality into your life, but don't deny your materiality because it's all one thing. And we're here on this earth in this incarnation for a reason. I don't know what the reason is, but it's a reason. We're all here doing something. We all chose a different path to be here. And to be honest with you, I just hear so many people wanting to deny this. But this is good. This is really good, especially when we bring the spirituality into it. Then it's remarkable. It's wonderful. We can have peace, which is my next slide. Practice the art of living in this world without losing your inner peace of mind. That's the blending. That's the integration, right? Spirit and this life together as one. What a perfect balance. We can be here engaged, happy, joyful, connecting, and also having that higher consciousness of knowing that we are more than this reality. But this is our reality now. So let's bring the two worlds together and live in peace and joy. And my last slide is this. Follow the path of balance to reach the inner wondrous garden of self-realization, because I believe that's what it's all about. Self-realization, capital S, meaning your bigger self, your higher consciousness, that spirit that you are. That, to me, is the spiritual journey of bringing life together in such a glorious coming together of what this is all about. All these strands, all these threads of who we are coming together. And at the center of it all is that spiritual energy that you are, bringing it all together so you can have that inner peace and not struggle in this life, because this life shouldn't be about struggle. I know it is sometimes, but struggle is a teacher. Struggle is a teacher. It leads us to see what's going on that I'm fighting against inside of myself. Am I not seeing the spiritual of this? Am I stuck in the material? If so, let's bring it together and end the struggle. And so this last slide is I don't know if you all saw this cute little, oh my God, I saw it, I was like laughing hysterically. It's pretty cute. But what's really funny to me is, and I didn't realize it till I was sitting there. So Easter is about rising up. But Passover, we don't eat leavened bread because we don't want the bread to rise. Because with Passover, the idea is that, well, first it's because the Jews were leaving Egypt in such a quickness, they didn't have time to let the bread rise, so they had to eat unleavened bread. And the symbol of that is that we want to get our, as Emerson would say, our bloated nothingness is represented in the yeast and the expansion of the bread. We want to get our bloated nothingness out of the way, because when we do, our circuits are open for that divine energy to come in. So that's the teaching. Get that ego out and let the divine essence rise up inside of you. And so on this Easter day, I encourage all of you to let your divine essence rise up and rise big. Feel the love of your heart. Don't stop it anymore. It's safe to come out and play. Because when we all stand in love and let it flow and know that we're okay, we are creating an amazing collective energy in our world. So wherever you are in your life, feel your spirit, connect in, and rise up in your greatness. Namaste. Thank you. Thank you.